Part 39. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 381. Zuyun's face was extremely ugly, and spiritual power immediately surged through his body. When he was about to use the thunder escape technique, he didn't expect that Fu Zhangjiang patted a booklet into his hand with a smile. Brother Chen, I almost forgot. There are ready-made books in the warehouse that only record advanced talisman painting techniques. Zuyun quickly stuffed it into his arms and said with a smile, I almost forgot, thank you for reminding me. What a false alarm. Zuyun was not ready to fight Fu Zhang. After all, this kind of monk is relatively very accomplished in the use of talismans. I guess I can't even get close. By the way, brother, are you leaving now? Are you in such a hurry? Why don't you stay here for a few days so that I can greet you properly? How dare Zuyun stay? He waved his hands repeatedly and said, Brother, you're welcome, I just want to go to Peeper Realm as soon as possible. Fu Zhang sighed and said, Brother, if you can come back to Yezhu in the future, you must come to see me. If you are missing some talisman materials or something, just tell me. Then thank you in advance, brother. Zuyun laughed and then said goodbye to Fu Zhangjiang. As soon as he left the palace gate, he quickly left towards the mountain gate using the steps of the secret of immortality. In order to avoid misunderstanding, Zuyun didn't even use his spiritual power. But unfortunately, he ignored one thing. Zhaofu sect comes from the 7-star section. Although Fu Zhangjiang is proficient in talismans, he is also involved in other methods. Even if he doesn't know it, how can he not recognize the longevity technique in this sect? Seeing Zuyun's back, Fu Zhangzhang's face suddenly darkened. The 7-star clan's longevity secret. Is this kid a remnant of the 7-star clan? Not good. Suddenly, as if he remembered something, he rushed back to the front of the hall and glanced at the table. The encyclopedia of talismans he had put down earlier was no longer anywhere. Stop! He shouted suddenly and rushed out. At the same time, he pinched 2 fingers and one appeared out of thin air and threw it towards Zuyun. Feeling the majestic spiritual power coming from behind, Zuyun was shocked. He didn't know where he had gone wrong, and he didn't have time to think about it. Immediately, he used the thunder escape technique without hesitation. The figure flashed past, and when he reappeared, he was already more than 200 steps away. What a good boy, you actually have such a mysterious escape technique. Fu Zhang's expression froze slightly, and then a hint of a sinister smile flashed across his face. No matter how many tricks you use, you still get an advantage from me. After that, he threw out another talisman. I saw that this talisman was not like all the talismans that would turn to dust when used. Instead, it turned into a golden light and flew rapidly towards Zuyun. So fast. Zuyun only heard a sound breaking through the air, and was amazed in his heart. He also discovered such an abnormality, and he did not dare to test the power of this talisman. Immediately, he flashed again and was 200 steps away. But when Zuyun appeared again, the talisman was chasing Zuyun closely without slowing down at all. Is this a tracking talisman? Zuyun frowned and saw the golden light flying rapidly towards him. He frowned and dodged again. At this time, Fu Zhangjiang was also mumbling words, and the entire mountain gate flashed with countless formations. The formation flashed toward the sky, and soon a mountain protecting formation appeared. This is to trap him here. Trouble. Zuyun glared angrily, looked up, and followed up with several escape techniques. Fu Zhangji chased after him leisurely. Although he can't match Zuyun's speed. But that golden talisman was like a corroded bone, constantly chasing Zuyun. What a talisman this is, so mysterious. Zuyun found that no matter how many thunder escape techniques he used, he could not escape Fu Lu's pursuit, and he couldn't help but feel a little anxious. and through those formation patterns, he also discovered that this mountain protecting formation was obviously not weak. It seems that in this chapter, his attainments in formation path are not low, and he is worthy of being a person from the 7-star sect. Zhu Yun's mind was spinning rapidly. If he wanted to break the formation and leave, the best way would be to use the formation breaking hammer. But according to what I saw, even if I used a formation breaking hammer, it would take at least a dozen hits to create a gap. But the problem is, within a dozen times, not only could the talisman catch up, but Fu Zhang would also have the opportunity to take action. Therefore, the most important issue right now is to solve this talisman first. Zhu Yun thought and immediately held the black sword in his hand. At the same time, countless chaotic forces emerged from the seeds in the lower abdomen. But when it was condensed into the sword body, it turned into thunder spirit power. The power of thunder spiritual power is no less than that of fire spiritual power, and its speed is much faster than that of fire spiritual power. Seeing that the golden talisman was only more than 10 steps away from his body, Zhu Yun immediately stabbed it out. "Break it for me." As Zhu Yun stepped forward and stabbed, countless thunder lights exploded on the sword body, and turned into a huge thunder snake, opening its bloody mouth and swallowing the talisman. In the distance, Fu Zhang, who was coming slowly, couldn't help but be surprised when he saw this scene. Is this a monk from Liligan? Just as he was surprised, Thunder Snake had already swallowed the talisman in his mouth. Zi La. Zi La. Zi La. Thunder and lightning continued to intertwine and intertwined, and soon a purple sphere was formed. And in the sphere, the golden light kept flashing and vibrating, trying to break through the shackles of the thunder ball and chase Zhu Yun again. Unfortunately, it doesn't help at all. Seeing this, Zhu Yun reached out and took out the remaining thunder-gathering talisman from his arms, and threw them all at Fu Zhang. Fu Zhangji came back to his senses and suddenly smiled sarcastically. The remnant of the 7-star sect actually pretended to be a monk from the Wild Sea area, and you almost got through. If you used other talismans, I would have to dodge. But this sky-gathering thunder talisman, I'm afraid it won't work. If you stand here and move, I will lose. As soon as the words fell, dark clouds filled the sky. Zhu Yun was not surprised to see so many thunder clouds. He knew that the more heaven-gathering thunder talismans he used, the more thunder clouds would appear, thus forming such an abnormality. But when faced with Zhang Zhang's calm expression, he felt a little puzzled. He said he couldn't move, but he really didn't move. He even put his hands on his hips, waiting for the thunder to fall on his head. Boom! 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 Countless purple thunders flashed across the sky, and the sky that suddenly darkened suddenly lit up again. But that's all. More than 10 thunderbolts suddenly landed on the mountain protecting formation. I saw the formation shaking a few times, and the thunder and lightning had dispersed. I see. Zhu Yun suddenly realized that Fu Zhang's sarcastic voice also came from this moment. Boy, it seems that you are not good at studying at the 7-star sect. I didn't recognize the 7-star mountain guard formation. So what if you are in the Dan formation stage? Your thunder that day was comparable to a strike in the Dan formation stage, so what? Zhu Yun looked solemn and said nothing, but he quietly took out the formation breaking hammer from his storage bag and put it in his arms. He has indeed never learned the 7-star mountain guard formation. But I heard Sun Suanhua say it. Compared with the 9 turns and 9 suns formation, the 7-star mountain guard formation is not much different. It's just that the 9 turns and 9 suns formation has more changes, and it can completely reach the level of the 7 stars mountain guard formation. So Sun Suanhua didn't let him learn, let alone teach him. If Zhu Yun could be allowed to concentrate on breaking the formation, he could break it. But time doesn't allow. Seeing Zhu Yun holding the black sword without saying a word, Fu Zhang was even more proud and said with a smile, "Boy, where did you learn from?" As far as I know, everyone in the 7-star sect seems to be dead, and I have not yet I've seen you. How dare you come here to steal my Fulu? Do you want to revive the 7-star sect? Zuyun sneered and said, you, a traitor from the 7-star sect, have what qualifications do you have to laugh at me? Only now, he had to anger Fu Zhang first and make him lose his mind, so that he could have the chance to kill him. It is almost impossible to break through the formation safely. Boy, I regard the current situation as a hero. Fu Zhang's face instantly turned ugly. He hated others calling him a traitor, even though he had indeed betrayed the 7-star sect. Be honest and hand over everything, otherwise I won't blame you for being rude. Looking at the ferocious Fu Zhang, Zuyun grinned and asked, do you think I will return the things in my hands to you? Otherwise, come and get them. As soon as he finished speaking, Zuyun grabbed a stack of Firebird talismans. Ha ha ha, kid, it's just a Firebird talisman, it's just an intermediate talisman. Unless your talisman is as powerful as the Heaven-Gathering Thunder talisman, I'll stand here and if you can burn a hair on my head, you'll win. Zuyun did not throw it out in a hurry, but fell to the ground and walked towards Fu Zhang. Fu Zhang was a little unsure of Zuyun's thoughts. According to common sense, wouldn't this be a suicide attempt? Little did he know that Zuyun was doing the opposite, also for a sneak attack. The Firebird talisman is not very fast, so you can only have a chance if you get close. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 382. Seeing Zuyun approaching so casually, Fu Zhangji narrowed his eyes. He didn't understand. As far as he knew, almost all the people in the 7-star sect were dead. He knew all the survivors of his generation, so how could he teach such a young person to the Danjing stage? Boy, what is your master's name? Thinking of this, Fu Zhang asked coldly. My master. Zuyun grinned and said mysteriously, I'll scare you to death if I tell you. Fu Zhangji narrowed his eyes. Before he left the 7-star gate, he was also the master of the same group. The only one who could scare him was the master. Could it be that he is the disciple of the sect master? But wasn't the sect leader already dead back then? How could he still accept disciples? Boy, tell me and see if you can scare me. Fu Zhang made up his mind that Zuyun was trying to scare him. It's a pity that he is not afraid at all. Little did he know that Zuyun was just trying to distract Fu Zhang from the beginning to the end. My master's surname is Ye and his given name is Suanhua. As soon as Zuyun said it, Fu Zhang screamed, he's not dead. You're not dead, how could he die? Zuyun raised his eyebrows and sneered, my master has a long life. Impossible, impossible. He was being hunted by Wang Jianshan's son at that time, and he was only in the foundation building stage, how could he live for so long? No, could it be that he also broke through the core building stage? Impossible, he has no talent for cultivation, even if I learned all 7 methods, so what? Fu Zhang shook his head repeatedly, his face full of disbelief. But at this moment, Zuyun suddenly threw out a stack of Firebird talismans. The talisman exploded, and dozens of fireballs continued to twist and shape with extreme heat. This Firebird talisman is really Ye Suanhua's disciple. Fu Zhang's face was solemn, and he immediately felt the difference in the Firebird talisman. He was also proficient in talismans. Although he was not specialized in the Firebird talisman, he could distinguish it at a glance. But what shocked him was not the power of the Firebird talisman, but that the sect leader's direct disciple was actually still alive. If this is the case, the biggest remnant of the 7-star sect and a disciple who is in the early stage of forming pills really have a chance to turn around. No one knows the power of Sun Suanhua better than him. The disciple is already in the early stage of forming the elixir, which means that he has made a breakthrough in the Tao elixir or formation, and he must be above the elixir forming stage. If this is the case, then this kid is determined not to let him leave alive. Thinking of this, Fu Zhang reached out and took out several talismans in his palm. Just when he was about to throw it out, his expression changed again. Clang clang clang. Clang clang clang. Clang clang clang. Countless phoenix cries sounded, and after the fire phoenix transformed from the firebird talisman took shape, it quickly rushed towards Fu Zhang. If it were just a firebird, Fu Zhang thought there were hundreds of ways to deal with it. But this is a fire phoenix, comparable to a strike during the pill forming stage. Even if he is at the peak of the late Dan formation stage, there is no guarantee that he will not be harmed. How is this possible? I clearly feel that he is holding an intermediate firebird talisman in his hand. Fu Zhang's pupils shrank sharply, and the talisman he had just taken out was stuffed back into his arms. When he reached out his hand again, he had already pinched a different talisman. High-level dungeon talisman. Whoops! Fu Zhang didn't have time to throw the talisman out, but crushed it directly in his hands. The talisman light flashed, and a wall of earth jumped out from under my feet. Boom! The first fire phoenix crashed into it, and fire suddenly burst out. Fu Zhang had no time to breathe, and quickly crushed another talisman. He saw water spiritual power surging, and a huge wave appeared in his hand, hitting the following fire phoenix fiercely. The power of high-level talismans is indeed extraordinary. Zhu Yun's eyes showed a hint of envy. If he learned this kind of 5-element talisman, he didn't know how powerful it would be. Chi-chi-chi. The huge waves hit the firebird and immediately raised countless water mist, which instantly filled the space between the two of them. Water can suppress fire, but there is only one giant wave talisman. How can it destroy so many fire phoenixes? Fu Zhang showed no reluctance and quickly took out several more giant wave talismans and crushed them in his hands one after another. One wave is not over, another wave is rising. At this time, in front of the sect master's hall, it seemed like a sea with boundless waves. Shoot the fire phoenix behind the earth wall one after another. But the more huge waves there were, the more mist there was, and soon the sight of the two was completely blocked. Even Zhu Yun had not thought of this. But his ability to adapt to changing situations has long been unparalleled. Break the formation at this moment. Zhu Yun did not hesitate, his body flashed continuously, and after a moment he was far away from here. Then he rose into the air and took out the formation-breaking hammer from his arms. 80. His mind twitched, and for some reason he shouted these two words, and the hammer hit the mountain guarding formation hard. Crack! On the formation wall, a formation pattern flashed. 80. 80. 80. Zhu Yun smashed the 7-star mountain guard formation crazily. With every blow, he felt that the light of the formation pattern was weakening. Obviously, as Sangu said, this formation-breaking hammer could forcefully break any formation. It's a pity that this is a talisman. Use it once and less. While Zhu Yun kept hitting the formation wall, Fu Zhang finally put out the fire phoenix. And he also discovered that Zhu Yun had escaped from here. Boy, the Zhaofu sect is my territory. Let's see where you can escape to. Seeing no one in front of him, Fu Zhang took out a compass-shaped magic weapon from his storage bag. This is the array. The array of the 7-star mountain guard formation. I saw that in the position of Tianchu, the light flickered on and off, and Fu Zhang exclaimed again. What a good boy, are you trying to forcefully break the formation? His face was extremely gloomy. If he had known better, he would not have put the formation disc into the storage bag, otherwise he would have felt the strange movement on the formation disc and discovered that Zhu Yun was powerfully breaking the formation. The 7-star mountain guard formation is extremely stable. This boy must be using some magic weapon to break it. Good boy, is it possible that Yesuan Hua has also mastered the art of weapon refining and refined a supreme magic weapon for him? Fu Zhang stretched out his hand and threw out a talisman. The talisman quickly enlarged like a flying carpet. At the same time, he quickly stood up, holding inexplicable magic tricks in his hands. This is a magical weapon, but it is also a talisman. It is Fu Zhang's proud work, and it is also his trump card. If he didn't want to kill Zhu Yun, he would never have taken it out. The talisman flies very fast, and he needs to stop Zhu Yun before he can forcefully break through the 7-star mountain guarding formation. Fu Zhang's face was extremely gloomy, and the strong wind whistling by his ears could not cover up the roar in his heart. In addition to the magic weapon that can forcibly break the formation, he also guessed that Zhu Yun had the true inheritance of the 7-star sect. Otherwise, how could he have thought of coming here to steal his Fu Lu encyclopedia? Not to mention, that weird firebird talisman can turn into a fire phoenix. Even he suffered a secret loss. Even if he managed to cope with it, he was still disgraced. And here, just when Zhu Yun was about to smash a hole in the formation, Fu Zhangjiang finally arrived. Seeing the golden light in his hand, Fu Zhang's eyes showed a greedy look. "Go to me." I saw his body suddenly jump up, and then hung in the air, but the talisman weapon continued to hit Zhu Yun. Not good. Feeling the extremely huge spiritual power, Zhu Yun was extremely anxious. Should we continue to smash the formation, or should we hide first? If we continue to smash it, if it fails to break open after 2 hits, will this magic weapon arrive first? But if he dodges it, will he still have a chance to smash the formation again? Moreover, Fu Zhangjiang is here, and he will most likely take advantage of this to repair the formation. Zhu Yun's eyes were sharp and he immediately made a decision in his heart. In a critical situation, the most taboo thing is to hesitate. 80. Zhu Yun roared wildly, and the hammer suddenly hit the formation wall. And the talisman weapon is only 100 steps away from him. 80. 90 steps. 80. 80 steps. 80. 70 steps. In the flash of lightning, Fu Zhangjiang's attention was completely attracted by the call from Zhu Yun's mouth, and he couldn't help but be filled with doubts. Is this the driving formula for that magic weapon? But just as he was having doubts, Zhu Yun suddenly heard a crisp sound. The refreshing spiritual power outside the formation poured in from the gap, caressing his face, and shocked him. And the talisman weapon was already very close to him. Thunder escape technique. Zhu Yun still held the hammer in his hand, and he didn't even have time to put it away before he ducked out of the gap. The talisman's magical weapon failed and hit the mountain guarding formation directly. Boom! The mountain guarding formation shook for a while, waking up Fu Zhang. He immediately gritted his teeth and rushed over angrily. The 7-star mountain guard formation is extremely strong. Even if Zhu Yun smashes a gap, it is still stable. However, when his talisman was smashed, the foundation of the entire formation was shaken. Just because he locked Zhu Yun with the talisman weapon, and Zhu Yun slipped out of the formation through the gap. But the talisman weapon couldn't fly out from the gap, so it naturally hit the formation. The most important thing is that Fu Zhangji is a full blow. In this case, Fu Zhangji shot himself in the foot. Crack! With a crisp sound, the array disc in Fu Zhang's hand immediately broke. The crack starts from the Tianxia position. Ah! Damn it, I want you to die. This 7-star mountain guard formation, which Fu Zhangjiang has been running for hundreds of years, is the basis for him to dare to compete with Wanjian Mountain, but he did not expect that it would be destroyed by him. And all of these are the remnants of the 7-star sect. While shouting violently, Fu Zhangjiang withdrew the formation while driving the talisman weapon to chase Zhu Yun. Even he himself pinched out 10 heaven-gathering thunder talismans, and at the same time, his spiritual sense instantly locked onto Zhu Yun. He wanted to use the talisman given by Zhu Yun and then take it out to blast him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 383. Get up. In terms of using talismans, Fu Yazang's ability is far superior to Zhu Yun. Moreover, he also has the magic formula developed over the past 100 years. Even if Zhu Yun is constantly moving, he has a way to lock Zhu Yun, so that the talisman can attack Zhu Yun accurately. As he threw out more than 10 pieces of Jushin Lei Fu, the sky was covered with dark clouds again, and thunder clouds appeared out of thin air. It was dark again all around. In a flash, Zhu Yun felt a repressive breath coming down from the sky. What made him even more frightened was that there would be countless thunder and lightning bombarding him. Run. Besides this, Zhu Yun had no other choice. He didn't want to use the Sun Li escape technique anymore, but there was no other way at this time, so he could only grit his teeth and run his spiritual power. With a flash of light in front of his eyes, Zhu Yun felt a completely different feeling from using it on the ground. But it was very similar to the first time he used it. He couldn't control the direction and distance at all. When he just flashed out, Zhu Yun found that those lightning snakes could still lock onto him, and they came crashing down, swallowing him up completely. But strangely, these lightning snakes did not disperse after hitting Zhu Yun, but instead wrapped around Zhu Yun, forming a thunder ball, and slammed him heavily to the ground. Ha ha ha. Boy, your heavenly thunder talisman is really useful. Seeing Zhu Yun being hit by himself, Fu Yazang laughed and flew closer to the thunder ball. Whether Zhu Yun had tried one in front of him before, or had used more than 10 to attack him later, these lightning pillars would disperse with one strike, and collapse as soon as they touched him. All the attack power was only that one strike. But Fu Yazang didn't know what effect would happen after hitting someone. In the thunder ball, Zhu Yun, who thought he was going to die here, was filled with ecstasy. Because these heavenly thunders would not only not hurt him, but also fit his body very well. Even before Fu Yazang flew close, he tried to absorb and refine a little bit, and then immediately entered the seed and turned into chaos power. He didn't understand what was going on, but he guessed that the Jushin Lei Fu was closely related to the thunder spirit power transformed from the chaos spirit. With the cover of the thunder ball, he took out the black sword without hesitation. When Fu Yazang fell in front of him, Zhu Yun shouted, gathered his spiritual power, and stabbed the sword fiercely. This sword, the angle is tricky, it is completely the reaction of Zhu Yun's body. And Zhu Yun only needs one thought to kill Fu Yazang. At such a close distance, plus thinking that Zhu Yun is dead, Fu Yazang can't dodge at all. More importantly, he is a cultivator who is good at fighting with talismans, and has hardly practiced other superior skills. But after all, Fu Yazang's strength is above Zhu Yun. The sword is extremely fierce, Fu Yazang's pupils shrank, and he subconsciously flashed to the side. The sword light with endless thunder spirit power just brushed past him and directly cut off one of his arms. Instantly, a scream sounded. Ah! He covered his broken arm, and some fine thunder light with blood jumped out from between his fingers, flashing continuously, raising a strong smell of blood. But Fu Yazang did not lose his mind, but quickly retreated, facing his talisman weapon with his back. Boy, I want you to die. Fu Yazang's shout was hysterical, and even the air was shaken. As the voice fell, Fu Yazang opened his mouth and spit out a small talisman from his mouth, flying towards Zhu Yun in the thunder ball. Get out of my way. After Zhu Yun injured Fu Yazang with a sword, his confidence soared. This roar was like thunder, and even the thunder ball wrapped around him was shaken, and it quickly turned into thunder and lightning, and went straight into the black sword. The thunder sword once again became a thunder sword. In an instant, Zhu Yun's leg slightly bent, and when the talisman flew over, he suddenly jumped up with his sword in both hands. This was clearly a move of spreading wings. The thunder sword raised with all his strength hit the talisman accurately, and was immediately knocked into the air. While the talisman was still moving and could not attack him again, Zuyun raised his left hand and a pillar of fire rushed out. Burn him! Zuyun swung forward, and the pillar of fire sprayed out, and it was divided into 5, turning into 5 fire dragons. Ang! With a dragon roar, the 5 fire dragons scattered and wrapped around Fu Yazang. Such a pure fire spirit power! Fu Yazang's pupils shrank, and he retreated a few points again. After reciting a spell, a formation suddenly appeared on the talisman magic weapon under his feet. Boom! 5 fire dragons rushed from 5 directions and hit the formation shield almost at the same time. Fu Yazang only felt that he was surrounded by a sea of fire. In addition to the extremely high temperature, there was also a deafening sound. He had no time to marvel at why Zuyun had so many means and was so strong. He could only strengthen the strength of the shield to prevent Zuyun's sneak attack. But he never thought that he would not be attacked by Zuyun again until the sea of fire receded. He looked carefully and saw that there was no one in front of him. Damn it, he actually let him run away. Fu Yazang cursed angrily, and then the cold light faded. Boy, I will make you pay the price. After saying that, he fell from the talisman flying carpet, and then took out the detailed drawing method and precautions of the Jushin Lei Fu left by Zuyun from his arms. Don't let me meet you again. Next time, I will smash you to death with the Jushin Lei Fu. Fu Yazang recalled that the reason why the Jushin Lei Fu did not hurt Zuyun was that Zuyun had done something wrong. Then, I will arrange someone to draw it myself and see how you deal with it. He determined that Zuyun was from the 7-star sect, so he would definitely stay in Yeazhu. Perhaps, it was because of the recent decline of Wanjian Mountain that these remnants dared to show up. In the distance, Zuyun flew all the way. The fight between the two had actually attracted the attention of the other disciples of the Zhaofu sect. It was just that with such a huge momentum, no one dared to get close, lest they would be affected. For this reason, Zuyun left this place very safely. I didn't expect that there were so many ways to use the talisman. Just in terms of using the talisman, there is still a big gap between me and him. Zuyun frowned, and then touched the Fu Lu de Quan stuffed in his arms. This should also be considered one of the treasures of the 7-star sect, right? When we find a suitable place to enter the immortal mansion, we will study it carefully. Zuyun continued to head south and soon saw an endless mountain range. He narrowed his eyes and said to himself, "Is this, the Zhuhao Mountains?" Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he fell down. If the Lord of Naihuo City wanted to annex Yeazhu with the help of monsters, he might be blocked by this mountain range. He could set up a self-destruct array here. But before that, he should study the talisman first. Where there are mountains, there will naturally be caves. Zuyun searched for a while and soon found an inconspicuous cave. He casually set up a 9-turn 9-yang array, and then he went in, and then flashed into the Dao glass mirror. Sitting casually on the stone bed, Zuyun took out the talisman collection in his arms, and then took out the heavenly talisman fragment from the stone shelf. Not only did he have to learn the advanced talismans of the 5 elements, he also had to try to see what the second talisman recorded in the heavenly talisman fragment was. Previously, if he had practiced the first level of the Breaking Void Spirit Eye technique, he could see through the illusion on the first page. Now that I have reached the 3rd level, maybe I can learn 2 supreme talismans. However, I should first learn all the talismans in the talisman collection, step by step, and not be impatient. Putting the heavenly talisman fragment beside him, Zuyun opened the talisman collection. The 5 advanced talismans are the Earth Wall Talisman, the Fire Phoenix Talisman, the Giant Wave Talisman, the Endless Life Talisman and the Golden Trace Talisman. The Earth element is still used for defense, but the Fire Phoenix Talisman is within his expectations. He saw Fu Yazang use the Giant Wave Talisman. The Endless Life Talisman should be used for healing. Then the Golden Trace Talisman, I think it is the talisman that Fu Yazang used to track himself. I just don't know what effect these talismans will have when they are all charged with corresponding spiritual power. Zhu Yun quickly calmed down and decided to start learning from the Earth Wall Talisman. He took a branch and squatted on the ground, and began to practice the talisman with one stroke according to the talisman collection. He had enough patience in drawing talismans. Thanks to Zhu Yun's foundation in Earth Shield Talisman and Earth Armor Talisman, the Earth Wall Talisman was only a little more complicated for him. And when he stopped, a month had passed in the Immortal Mansion. During this month, Zhu Yun kept going back and forth. Not only the Earth Wall Talisman, he memorized all 5 kinds of talismans. At this time, he stood up, took the Heaven Talisman fragment, performed the Breaking Void Spirit Eye technique, and turned to the second page. Woo woo woo. A piercing cold wind blew past his ears, and Zhu Yun couldn't help but shivered. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 384. In just a blink of an eye, Zhu Yun already felt like he was in another world. Thousands of miles of ice, thousands of miles of snow. Looking around, everything is white. Underfoot, there was thick ice. All around, the howling cold wind brought snowflakes all over the sky. Even a little further away, there was an extremely huge white tornado, sweeping towards him. Zhu Yun knew that the reason why this tornado was white was because it was also mixed with ice chips. What to do? The tornado was extremely fast, and with every breath, it would grow larger in Zhu Yun's pupils. This showed that it was extremely fast, and Zhu Yun couldn't help but worry about his own safety. From what he could see, although the tornado looked a little far away, it covered a very wide area. How to deal with it after getting close? And, as the tornado got closer, he felt the temperature around him getting lower and lower. It was as if Sun Qinyang was frozen in the secret realm when she was still with the ice spirit root. Just when he was confused, he suddenly felt a warm current in his lower abdomen. Zhu Yun concentrated his inner spirit, and then he discovered that the power of chaos was pouring out of the gap in the seed, filling his body along the meridians. A moment later, these chaotic forces rushed towards his eyes at the same time. Zhu Yun felt a shock all over, and there was an inexplicable power in his eyes. He subconsciously looked up, and then he realized that the tornado had disappeared. The surrounding ice fields also disappeared. What caught his eye was the fragment of the Heaven Talisman he held in his hand. He was frightened and had lingering fears. It's too scary. I was brought into it by the broken scroll of the Heavenly Talisman again. With an exclamation and a sigh of relief, Zhu Yun looked at the contents on the remaining Tianfu scroll. Ice Tornado. On the left page, there is an introduction to this talisman. The page on the right shows the talisman drawing method of the ice tornado. After the advanced talisman is activated, it will release a tornado with ice. This talisman is extremely powerful. It is recommended to protect yourself when using it. The range of the ice tornado is very large, and the low temperature caused may affect the user of the talisman. Seeing this, Zhu Yun couldn't help but marveled again and said, "Is it possible that I could accidentally injure myself with this talisman?" But soon, he showed a knowing smile. If he had developed the ice spiritual power, would it be the same as the thunder triggered by the Heaven Gathering Thunder Talisman, which would not hurt him? At that time, Fu Zhangjiang used his Heaven Gathering Thunder Talisman. As a result, those thunders not only did not hurt him, but in the end, all the thunder spirit power was absorbed by him into the black sword. There is almost no difference between using it and condensing it yourself. Thinking about it at this time, Zhu Yun was also very surprised. After thinking about it, there seems to be no explanation at all except that it is filled with thunder spirit energy transformed from the force of chaos. So, study the ice spiritual power? Zhu Yun touched his chin. It can be said that the thunder spiritual power is a combination of the two spiritual powers of gold and fire. As long as he extracts the characteristics of thunder spirit power from the two spiritual powers and then fuses them, he will succeed. The difficulty lies in how to stabilize it. But although ice spiritual power is also a mutated spiritual power, the problem is that ice spiritual power is a variant of water spiritual power. How should I change myself? Scratching his head, Zuyun was puzzled. The only difference I can think of is that ice is the form of water at extremely low temperatures. But you can heat it up by yourself, but you can't cool it down. It seems that this ice spiritual power cannot be researched for a while. However, you can draw the talisman first and not charge the spirit for the time being. When you master the ice spirit power, you can fill it again. But if you still can't find a clue, you can go to Yunzhou to find Sun Qiniang. Maybe you can get some experience from her. No matter how bad it is not impossible to use chaotic spiritual power to recharge the soul. Anyway, high-level talismans are enough to deal with monks in the pill formation stage. Besides, I also have the Fire Phoenix talisman. After making the decision, Zuyun took out the materials for high-level talismans and prepared to draw 100 Fire Phoenix talismans and Ice Tornado talismans in case of emergency. As for other talismans, you also need to prepare some. But he didn't know that at this time, Sun Qiniang and Li Emo were wandering randomly in the Shiwen Mountains, and finally came to the Silver Sword sect. Li Emo, you stay in the mountain, I'll go over and take a look. Along the way, Li Emo chattered endlessly, which made Sun Qiniang already wary of the Silver Sword sect. But in fact, she didn't take it to heart at all. After all, I just came here to inquire about Zuyun. Besides, Sun Qiniang believed that she had rich experience and would not stay in the Silver Sword sect, so she was not worried about any danger to herself. Li Emo actually wanted to go there with Sun Qiniang, but he was self-aware. He was afraid that once his spiritual power was revealed, people from the Silver Sword sect would recognize him as a member of the Luo sect. What's more, he looks very similar to Li Tian, and he is even more afraid of being discovered by the leader of the Silver Sword sect, his biological mother. Therefore, he could only make an appointment with Sun Qiniang to stay here. After seeing Sun Qiniang go to Silver Sword sect, Li Emo was bored, so he randomly found an ancient tree and flew up. After lying on a thick branch, Li Emo crossed his legs, held a leaf in his mouth, and put his hands behind his head, looking contented. This place belongs to the northeastern edge of the 10,000 mountains, and it is not far from the Silver Sword section. Li Emo thought that no monsters would come here, and he was idle and relaxed, so he began to doze off. After a cup of tea, a rustling sound came from below, and Li Emo suddenly woke up. When he was about to release his spiritual consciousness to detect whether there was a monster attacking, he saw a white shadow suddenly jumped into his arms. He looked carefully and found that it was a three-tailed little fox. "Hey, it's you." Li Emo stared with an incredible look on his face. Of course he recognized that this three-tailed demon fox was Qiu Qi, who was sent back to the Demon Fox Mountain by him and Sun Qiniang. But the Demon Fox Mountain is tens of thousands of miles away from here, how could it be here again? While he was in doubt, Qiu Qi hid behind Li Emo, and then there were footsteps coming quickly towards this place. Li Emo lowered his voice and said helplessly to Qiu Qi, "Little guy, is your luck so bad?" As soon as the voice fell, two familiar figures chased out from behind a few trees. "Sister, that little fox runs really fast. It should have nowhere to run, not far from here. Let's catch it quickly. If it is discovered by other people in the sect, I'm afraid that someone will take the credit." "Yes, sister. Fortunately, we all paid attention and consciously drove it over here, otherwise, it would be really troublesome. These two people are the sisters who kidnapped Qiu Qi at that time. They concentrated their attention, one listened to the sound to determine the position, and the other released the spiritual consciousness. After days of pursuit, their tacit understanding has reached a higher level. Soon, they found Xiuqi's trace and knew that Xiuqi was hiding in the tree. This is common in the process of pursuit. "Hey, where are you going?" The two of them raised their heads and looked upwards, and suddenly saw a familiar face. Li Emo grinned and said, "You too, how are you?" Seeing their smiles that were uglier than crying, Li Emo jumped down from the tree. But his smile had already been put away, and he shouted in a deep voice, "I have warned you once, but you still went to catch this little fox. Don't you take me seriously?" While speaking, he released his spiritual consciousness and directly suppressed the two people. "Senior, spare my life, spare my life." The junior sister knelt down and begged for mercy. But the senior sister said stubbornly, "Senior, this is the territory of my Silver Sword sect, aren't you afraid of offending us?" Suddenly, a cold light flashed in Limo's eyes, and he stretched out his palm. But he didn't use the last step to condense the fire. After following Sun Qiniang for a long time, his experience has also increased greatly. "It's not that I'm afraid that I can't kill the two people, but the senior sister is right, it's too close to the Silver Sword sect. What if he runs into the biological mother he has never met and he feels the breath of Liwo?" Moreover, Sun Qiniang went to the Silver Sword sect to inquire about the news, and he can't make trouble at this time. In this way, he can only suppress them temporarily and wait until Sun Qiniang comes back. Thinking of this, Li Emo snorted coldly, put away his spiritual power, and used coercion to suppress them. A higher realm, these two people can't make any waves in his eyes. At this time, Qiuqi also ran down from the tree again and jumped onto Limo's shoulder. But who knew that at this time, another huge breath surged over and locked onto Li Emo in an instant, and at the same time a cold, ruthless, and greedy voice sounded. "I seem to smell the breath of a fox. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 385. Limo's heart tightened, and he immediately judged from this momentum that he was definitely no match. And because he was in the territory of the Silver Sword sect, he was like a frightened bird. Escape. With this thought, Li Emo simply stopped worrying and directly threw two beams of Li fire at the two female cultivators. When the screams started, Li Emo did not forget to pull off the storage bags from the waists of the two women. This is the experience Sun Qiniang passed on to him. In her words, after a person dies, the storage bag cannot be wasted. And the reason why he didn't hesitate to kill these two people was not because of his grudge against the Silver Sword sect. The main thing is that these two people refused to change despite repeated admonitions and committed a taboo in Chuzhu. At the same time, you can also let the death of these two female cultivators attract the attention of the senior, so as to buy yourself some opportunities to escape. After doing all this, Li Emo ran wildly towards the depths of Shiwen Mountain in just one breath. Qiuqi reacted quickly, hooking his claws tightly on Limo's shoulders, and his three foxtails kept swaying as Li Emo ran wildly. Not only did Li Emo feel the terror from that voice just now, but Qiuqi also knew instinctively that if he encountered it, he would definitely die. Li Emo was obviously her life-saving straw, how could he let go? Moreover, she also smelled many similar scents in her breath. What does this mean? The person who spoke must be related to his missing tribesman. As a result, Qiuqi is even less likely to let go of his claws. Li Emo ran very fast, but it was obvious that the owner of the voice was only at the stage of forming pills and could not catch up with Li Emo for a while. This was due to Limo's prompt decision, not only the death of the two female cultivators to temporarily divert his attention. Moreover, during this period of time, he has been in the 100,000 mountains, and his familiarity with it is far beyond that of the person chasing him. That's it, Li Emo ran for several hours and only stopped after he felt it was safe. Sitting on the ground, He and Qiu Qi stared at each other. After a long while, Li Mo said, little fox, we are really destined. But you are also miserable. Why are you caught up by those two women again? Qiu Qi looked at Li Mo innocently, then shook his head. If she knew, would she still come here? Li Mo was helpless and sighed, it's over now. I don't know if it will affect Sun Qinyang after making such a big noise, but with that strong man here, I can't go back, otherwise, go north and come from the other side. Past. Qiu Qi thought Li Mo was asking her for advice, so she chirped a few times, meaning not to go north, she wanted to go home. But Li Mo couldn't understand it at all. Thinking that Qiu Qi agreed with his opinion, he immediately stood up and said, little fox, let's leave quickly. I'm feeling panicked here alone. Qiu Qi was more panicked than him. Even if she was unwilling to go north, it was clear that Li Mo was leaving, so how could she dare to leave? The strength was weak and the place was unfamiliar. In desperation, Qiu Qi had no choice but to crawl along Li Mo's trouser legs to its shoulders. One person and one fox walked towards the north like this. It's just that they don't know that if they go on this road, they can reach the Peeper realm. Other side. Sun Qinyang successfully entered the Silver Sword sect. Because she was also a female cultivator and a sword cultivator, and she was in the realm of the pill formation stage, she was personally greeted by a deacon in the pill formation stage. In normal times, such treatment would never be possible. The Silver Sword sect is also a major sect in Chuzhu after all. But now, Chuzhu has undergone tremendous changes. They benefited from being far away from the demon refining tower and being on the border of Chuzhu. The then Naihuo city lord did not kill here. 17th Elder, being able to come to our Silver Sword sect really adds to our glory. Sun Qinyang adopted the identity of Wan Jianshan and changed her name to Xianxia. Xianxia is also one of the few female cultivators in Wanjian Mountain, which is in line with her early stage of pill formation. I'm sorry to hear you're so polite, Deacon. You and I are the two major sects who are the leaders in swordsmanship in the two states. I'm just passing through here to visit you this time. Sun Qinyang said with a smile. This Deacon Wen, known as Wen Zihong, is the biological sister of Wen Zilan, an elder in the late stage of pill formation. When Sun Qinyang was so polite, Wen Zihong also smiled and said, 17th Elder does not need to see anyone, but the recent changes in Chuzhu have caused our Silver Sword sect to lose a lot of manpower. Now we don't dare to send ordinary disciples out to inquire about the news. Morning. Some time ago, I heard that Wan Jianshan was attacking Xian city with a collective force. I wonder if the 17th Elder has any news about the beast tide. This is one of the purposes of smelling purple. The Silver Sword sect has many eyes and ears, spread throughout the major cities in Chuzhu. Even some of the weaker sects have spies. But suddenly, these people's soul cards were shattered accordingly. So they sent out many disciples, but no matter how many people they sent, no news came. Even after some time, news of the death of these disciples will be heard. Later, only one of the deacons in the alchemy stage came to know the seriousness of the matter after hearing the 8-character telegraph message of the great changes in Chuzhu and the boundless tide of beasts. In order to reduce unnecessary losses, the Silver Sword sect closed the mountain and locked the sect, only allowing entry and not exiting. But now that Sun Qinyang is visiting, they naturally want to inquire about some news from the outside world. But Sun Qinyang has been in Shiwendas Han. Where is the news? Suddenly I choked on my words. It can be said that after she arrived in Chuzhu, she had no idea what happened in Chuzhu. In desperation, Sun Qinyang had no choice but to say, Deacon Wen, please forgive me. Shiki did not participate in the attack on Jian City, because there was a traitor in our Wanjian mountain who fled into Shiwanda mountain, so Shiki has been searching in the mountain, and now he is living in the past 3 years, I still haven't found him, and I don't dare to go back to the sect to resume my life, so I don't know what happened to the outside world. Oh. Wen Zihong frowned. So, this so-called 17th sword has no use value? If they weren't afraid of Wang Jianshan's strength, they might have forced Sun Qiniang to stay here so that she could serve the Silver Sword sect. After all, one of his sect's Danji period had already died, which made the sect leader furious. But if the person who died was in another Dan formation stage, they wouldn't feel bad at all. In desperation, Wen Zihong had no choice but to say, I don't know who the 17th elder is looking for. Wen can ask among the disciples if they have seen him. However, we cannot guarantee the timeliness. After all, now we are also interested in Chuz Hu. My eyes are all black. Regardless of whether there is any result or not, Chi is grateful. Sun Qiniang clasped her hands in her fists, and then said, the disciple we are looking for is also a disciple of Wanjian Mountain, who is in the late stage of foundation building, but he has the ability to disguise himself and can hide his realm. Please ask Deacon Wen to help find out if there is any news. 17 and 17 Wanji Unshan is grateful. Wen Zihong nodded and said, 17th elder, please wait a moment while Wen goes to ask. After saying that, she stood up and left, leaving Sun Qiniang alone in the house. When she went out, she called a disciple, passed the news and asked the disciples who have returned to the sect from nearby if they have seen anyone from Wanjian Mountain. From Wanjian Mountain. The disciple was slightly stunned and said subconsciously, isn't there someone from Wanjian Mountain with Elder Wen? He's been here for a long time. Where's my sister? Wen Zihong's eyes lit up, and she thought about it for a while. It seemed that she and Sun Qiniang could still match up the time. She secretly guessed in her heart, can she really find it? It turns out that this kid is hiding in the Silver Sword section, no wonder you can't find him after looking for him for so long. So he said, you call the elder of Wanjian Mountain and tell her to come if she can find someone. After that, he took sword steps and rushed towards Wen Zilan's cave. After lighting a stick of incense, she whispered softly outside a cave, is sister here? After a while, Wen Zilan's indifferent voice came over. What's the matter? Sister, an elder from Wanjian Mountain came here looking for a traitor, and it seems that he is at your place. Wen Zihong listened to the questions in her tone and told her about Sun Qiniang. Chuz Hu has undergone tremendous changes. I'm afraid it's not a big deal. We can't offend Wanjian Mountain for the time being. Maybe in the future, our Silver Sword sect and Wanjian Mountain can communicate with each other. In this way, you can take these ants from Wanjian Mountain back. Anyway, I tired of playing too. After saying that, a cross-shaped wooden frame flew out from inside and hit hard outside the cave. On the shelf, a half-dead Foundation establishment monk was tied. The clothes are torn and the skin is torn. It seems that he will die in the next moment. Elder sister. Wen Zihong's heart trembled. She had no idea that her sister had such a cruel side and would torture a minor foundation building cultivator. As everyone knows, Li Molan is Wen Zilan's most promising disciple, but after going out with Chen Hua, what comes back is a corpse. Furious, Wen Zilan vented all her anger on Chen Hua. Go. If Jian Shiki feels something is wrong, let her come to me to argue. The domineering words came out, and Wen Zihong quickly shut up. Then, he controlled the wooden frame to fly behind him from the air, flying towards his house. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 386. When Wen Zihong returned to the house with the dying Chen Hua, Sun Qiniang was also shocked. She never expected that instead of getting any news from Zhu Yun, she would bump into Chen Hua instead. But seeing him like this, Sun Qiniang couldn't help but die. The two got along for a while before the trip to the secret realm, and their relationship was pretty good. Seeing that he was still alive, even though I was filled with all kinds of anger, I could only endure it because I had spoken beforehand. No matter how strong she is, she can't compete with the Silver Sword sect. In desperation, Sun Qiniang showed a grateful smile and said to Wenzihong, I didn't expect that this traitor would be hiding in the Silver Sword sect. This time, not only do I, Jian Shiki, owe you a favor, but I, Wan Jianshan, also owe you a favor. It's a favor. Wenzihong also breathed a sigh of relief. Wan Jianshan's reputation as a protector of shortcomings had been heard even in the far west of Chuzhu, and she was afraid that Sun Qiniang would protect her shortcomings so much that even a traitor would vent her anger on her behalf. Elder 17 is too polite. Now that we have found him, why not stay here for a few days so that Wen can fulfill his friendship as a landlord? No, Shi-Chi needs to go back and recover as soon as possible. Hearing about the great changes in Chuzhu, Shi-Chi doesn't know what happened. He needs to return to the sect as soon as possible. This time, he accepts Deacon Wen's love. Then I'll leave first. When Wenzihong saw this, she no longer wanted to stay and said, I'm going to send the 17th elder away. Please. Sun Qiniang knew that no matter how anxious she was, she could not reveal herself, otherwise she might not be able to save Chen Hua. The two of them walked side by side, while Sun Qiniang was holding an object in the air, flying suspended with a wooden frame. Just when they reached the mountain gate and the two were about to part ways, a burly figure with an evil aura came down. His eyes instantly fell on Sun Qiniang's face. This fairy is very strange. Is she new here? Sun Qiniang heard a hint of frivolity from it and frowned without saying anything. At this time, she just wanted to find a place to put Chen Hua down to help him heal, and then meet up with Li Mo. She didn't want to cause any trouble. Wenzihong hurriedly said, Senior Mu, this is the 17th elder of Jian from Wanjian Mountain. He is here to look for traitors. Oh. The monk surnamed Mu raised his eyebrows, looking at Sun Qiniang unscrupulously, and said, I heard in Peeper Realm that the sword cultivators in Wanjian Mountain are all a group of arrogant people, but I don't know if the female cultivators in Wanjian Mountain are here. Same. I wonder if Fairy can help Mu gain some knowledge. Sun Qiniang felt cold in her heart, but she was worried about the other party's strength in the late stage of pill formation and the fact that she was bringing Chen Hua with her, so she had to pretend not to understand the meaning of the male cultivator's words, and said with a sweet smile, Fellow Taoist Mu, Jian has something else to do. You have to do it. If you come to Wanjian Mountain in the future, you must let Mu Dao see it. Ha ha ha, is it true? However, it is better to choose the right day than to hit the sun. If we meet today, we are destined. Why don't you let me see it now? It won't waste much time of the sword fairy. With that said, he stretched out his hand to grab Sun Qiniang. Sun Qiniang flashed her dexterity, giggled, and said, Fellow Taoist Mu, so you don't have long enough? Why don't we raise him more? How about we make an appointment after a while? After that, she even winked at him. Such affectation made the male cultivator who was used to the female cultivators of the Silver Sword sect feel a completely different style. It made his mind wander and he swallowed. The male cultivator said, Okay, okay. Sword Fairy, please wait. When I return to Peeper Realm, I will go directly to Wanjian Mountain to find you. Don't let Mu Mao down then. Sun Qiniang stood up with a graceful figure. She looked back with a smile and said, I'm afraid Taoist Mu will disappoint Jian. I will definitely not let you down. When I go back this time, I will definitely ask Master for some elixirs, and I will definitely make you cry for father and mother. When Sun Qiniang was working as a robber with her two brothers, she often used her beauty to seduce them, causing many monks to lose their minds, and then let her two brothers take action. She was not familiar with this kind of thing, but it couldn't be easier for her to deal with a male cultivator who was obsessed with her beauty upon meeting her. Although she was shocked and frightened, Sun Qinyang still managed to run away with Chen Hua without any danger due to her two lives and the fusion of Jian Tianming's memories and experiences. The male cultivator reluctantly looked back and pulled Wen Zihong over. "Deacon Wen, help me defeat the fire first." After that, he rushed towards Wen Zihong's house. Wen Zihong felt extremely helpless. This is the elder of the Peeper Realm Wood Spirit sect who is responsible for stationing here. It is related to whether their sect can move forward. The sect master has told us that in this regard, we must satisfy him as much as possible. Sun Qinyang made a circle and finally landed at the position where she had separated from Li Mo before. But when he saw the two female corpses left on the ground, he knew something was wrong. The air was filled with the smell of Li Huo. It was obviously Li Mo who had taken action. However, is it suitable for two people in the foundation building stage to kill them under such circumstances? Li Mo is upright and lacks experience, but he is not stupid. Otherwise, how could he cultivate to the early stage of elixir formation? Could it be? Did you meet the male cultivator who just came from the Peeper Realm? Sun Qinyang thought deeply for a moment, and then removed Chen Hua from the wooden frame first. Without the support of the frame, Chen Hua instantly collapsed to the ground. Sun Qinyang took a closer look and discovered that Chen Hua's bones were all broken. It can be said that except for the skull, his limbs and ribs were all broken into countless pieces. You can still live like this, you are really amazing. Sun Qinyang was also extremely shocked. After coming to her senses, she took out an essence-nourishing pill and stuffed it into his arms. Fortunately, when I came out of the Spirit Sword sect, I left some elixirs with me, which came in handy at this time. These essence-nourishing pills were all refined by Zhu Yun. The effect is excellent. As soon as the power of the medicine dissipated, Chen Hua suddenly woke up and turned around. After seeing that it was Sun Qinyang, she smiled bitterly and said, "Strange, why did I dream about my little junior sister?" Sun Qinyang was speechless for a while, then said, "You are not dreaming." Originally he wanted to say, "If it's a dream, wouldn't it be better if you pinch yourself?" But when the words came to his lips, he swallowed them back. If Chen Hua could move, he wouldn't be like this. No. Chen Hua was stunned for a moment, then said in shock, "Little junior sister, was it you who rescued me from the Silver Sword sect?" Sun Qinyang sighed and said, "I'll talk to you later. Is your Danshan still fine? Then refine the medicine. It's not advisable to stay here for a long time. Let's leave first." After saying that, she took out her long sword, lifted Chen Hua up and floated in the air, and she flew slowly while wielding the sword. Things have changed in Chuzhu, and I don't know what the situation is now. With Chen Hua, I guess he will die if he encounters the situation. We can only go to the 100,000 mountains. Sun Qinyang gave up the idea of looking for Zhu Yun for the time being. I went to Zhu Yun earlier because I was worried about Zhu Yun's safety. But I haven't met Zhu Yun after such a long time. Either he is too dead to die anymore, or he is safe and sound. She felt that based on her understanding, Zhu Yun would be fine. Right now, Chen Hua's injury will take half a year no matter how fast it is. Moreover, there is also Li Mo who is unknown to where he is. That idiot, is it really okay to walk alone? Thinking of these things, Sun Qinyang had a headache. At this moment, she finally understood Zhu Yun's feelings. There was a faint epiphany in my heart. At this time, Zhu Yun in the Immortal Mansion had prepared the talisman. 100 Ice Tornado Scrolls are not filled with spirit. There are 100 Fire Phoenix talismans and 30 Earth Wall talismans. These two are also high-level talismans. Zhu Yun only has 1,000 materials. But there are more Heaven Gathering Thunder talismans. He drew a total of 2,000 pictures. Because out of 10,000 copies of materials, 2,000 sheets are only 1/5. If he hadn't been tired from painting and charging, he would have used up all 10,000 copies of the materials. Call. After restoring his spiritual power to fullness, Zuyun looked at the alchemy room. Since breaking through to the pill formation stage, Zuyun has been busy with various things and almost forgot about the pill recipe. The reason for forgetting is actually very simple. Even if he could, he wouldn't have the materials to refine high-level elixirs. He has a high-end alchemy furnace and a heavenly fire. But there is no magic pill. In addition to the elixirs in the medicine garden, there are also some ordinary elixirs and good elixirs. But unfortunately, there was no high-level elixir he knew. But just because he was tired of drawing talismans, Zuyun felt the need to take a look at the elixir recipe. Outside is the Juhao Mountains. You may be able to encounter useful elixirs and pick them up along the way. Be prepared. After entering the alchemy room, Zuyun quickly walked to the container. There were still 5 in a row, and Zuyun opened the first small medicine cabinet. A yellowish recipe fell into his eyes. Zuyun took it out and took a look, and was stunned for a moment. Ice Spirit Pill. After taking this elixir, people with water spiritual roots can temporarily convert spiritual power into ice spiritual power. The better the quality, the longer it will last. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 387. Is this a pillow brought by Doze? Zuyun looked towards the elixir he needed, and then shook his head. Not really. He knew that the main medicine, Ice Spirit Flower, was extremely difficult to obtain. This elixir usually grows in extremely cold places. Not to mention Yeazhu, even the entire Ya realm would not be able to grow such elixir. Apart from this main medicine, other elixirs are quite common. Zuyun threw the prescription of Bingling Dan back, and then looked at the other 4 drawers. The other few are fairly common, they are nothing more than high-end ordinary elixirs, suitable for use during the elixir formation stage. But Zuyun still didn't have several of the main medicines he needed. After glancing at his mouth, Zuyun closed the drawers one by one, then turned around and left the alchemy room. It seems that if you want to refine good elixirs, you must go to the Peeper realm. But if the Naihuo city lord is not eliminated, the entire Ya realm will be devastated. And the most important thing is that the Naihuo city lord has lost his strength. At the peak of the late stage of pill formation, if he doesn't concentrate on breaking through, he will build the demon refining tower. In this case, either this demon refining tower is a supreme magic weapon, or the demon refining tower can help him to form a baby in the future. Go. Zuyun thought for a moment and decided to try to see if he could kill the lord of Naihuo city. He didn't know whether he was doing it for the common people in the world, or for killing people and grabbing treasures. But no matter what, he felt that if he didn't stop Naihuo city lord, he would be acting against his will. After coming out of the alchemy room, Zuyun entered the pasture. Every time he uses a new method, he is used to testing it here first. Taking out a fire phoenix talisman, he threw it towards an open space. Keng. There was a phoenix cry, which looked no different from the firebird talisman he used. But when the fire phoenix took shape, Zuyun immediately discovered how different it was from the firebird talisman. This fire phoenix looks more real. The feathers condensed from the power of fire are even more lifelike. Moreover, from the moment he releases the talisman to the formation of the fire phoenix, the speed is also much faster. As soon as the talisman turned into ashes, the sound of the phoenix's cry came out. Then, the fire phoenix rushed towards the position locked by Zuyun. Boom! The fire phoenix hit the ground and made a loud noise. Another big hole was opened in the ground, which was much stronger than the one exploded by the self-destruction array before. That's great. Zuyun was very satisfied with the power of the fire phoenix talisman and nodded frequently. And this speed is only slightly slower than the heaven-gathering thunder talisman. After all, it is a high-grade talisman, and it has been infused with fire spiritual power by Zuyun, so its power is naturally extraordinary. Then, Zuyun tested the earth wall talisman again. Similarly, the earth wall rose from the ground and did not stop until it was 5 or 6 feet high. With a thought in his mind, he shouted in a low voice, "Chaos palm." In his lower abdomen, all the spiritual energy rushed into his palm instantly, and Zuyun slapped it directly on the earth wall. Boom! Dirt crumbs flew everywhere, raising a cloud of dust. But the earthen wall only shook for a moment, and then returned to stillness. Zuyun's eyes widened suddenly. This earth wall could actually block the palm of chaos. This is a blow comparable to the infant stage. Just when he was shocked, the earth wall suddenly shattered and collapsed into a piece of loess. After blinking his eyes, all the loess turned into spiritual power and dissipated among the pastures. That's enough, that's enough. Being able to block the chaos palm means that you can block a nascent soul stage attack. And it's done very quickly. If I encounter the golden Jiao again, I can use this earth wall to block it. Withstand. Faced with this, Zuyun was still satisfied. He didn't need to hide behind the wall to withstand the attack like Fu Zhang did. As long as the earthen wall can help him by a breath of time, in times of danger, it will be enough for Zuyun to escape and ascend to heaven. After recovering your spiritual power, you can go out to find the Lord of Backfire City. A flash of light flashed in Zuyun's eyes, then he closed his eyes and sat down directly to start practicing Qi. A few hours later, after the seeds in his belly were once again filled with spiritual power, Zuyun left the immortal mansion with satisfaction. Outside, the moon and stars were sparse, and it was already late at night. Zuyun listened for a while, but there was nothing unusual except for the sound of insects. After thinking for a moment, Zuyun decided to go back and take a look at it at night. Although in the dark of night, if you encounter a situation, you can easily be discovered by using the thunder escape technique. But if he encounters the golden dragon again, it will be easier for Zuyun to discover its existence. If it weren't for the golden dragon demon king at that time, Zuyun wouldn't have escaped in such an embarrassing situation. However, it was also a blessing in disguise that Zuyun came to Zaofu sect by mistake, and thus achieved such a harvest. Just when Zuyun was about to carry it on his back again, a dark spiritual energy suddenly came from behind him. A man in the devil's path? Zhu Feng. Zuyun subconsciously thought it was Zhu Feng, but he quickly recognized it was not Zhu Feng. He frowned slightly, stopped, and hid his figure in the darkness. The sound of voices also came from afar. "Jinlun, are you sure there is no one at Wanjian Mountain?" "Of course, half a month ago I dressed up and went to the foot of Wanjian Mountain to buy some elixir, and that's when I heard the news. I thought it was a rumor deliberately spread by Wanjian Mountain, but who would have thought that many monks would say the same thing one after another, so I couldn't hold myself back, so I went over to take a look. If there weren't still 3 mid-stage pill-forming people here, I wouldn't have come back to call you." Another voice said, "Then it's enough for the 3 of us to go." After Wan Jianshan betrayed his trust and joined forces with us to defeat the Haori sect, he immediately turned his guns. While they only have 3 people guarding the mountain, we will go over and collect some interest and come back. Zuyun was surprised when he heard the conversation between these 3 people. Obviously, these are people from the Magic Wheel sect. I just didn't expect that they still have 3 Danji stage survivors here. Moreover, listening to their voices, I am afraid that if I get here soon, I will definitely be discovered. In this case, it is better to show up proactively." Zuyun only pondered for a while, then stood up and said loudly, "Are these 3 fellow Taoists of the Magic Wheel sect?" The clear voice echoed in the dark night, and the 3 elders Jinlun immediately stopped. "Fellow Taoist who? The next casual cultivator is coming back from Wanjian Mountain." Unexpectedly, he ran into three fellow Taoists. Zhu Yun seemed unprepared, but in fact he was secretly cautious. The same is true for the three people from the Magic Wheel sect. In this wilderness, under the dark lights, a Danja stager suddenly appeared. Who could pay attention? What's more, they have long heard about the fact that all the sects in Yas who were killed by Wanjian Mountain in their Dan formation stage. There is another pill forming period before us. Who can guarantee that he is not someone sent by Wanjian Mountain? Elder Jinlun snorted coldly and said, "My fellow Taoist dares to talk to us and other demonic people alone, aren't you afraid that we will kill and silence you?" His words were full of temptation. As long as there is something strange about Zhu Yun, they will take action without hesitation. Zhu Yun, however, laughed and said, "The three Taoist friends have no grudges against me, so why would they kill me? Of course, if I dare to speak, I will naturally have a trump card to save my life." The three of them were silent for a moment, as if they were thinking about the meaning of Zhu Yun's words, and they were even playing games with themselves in their hearts. Do they believe Zhu Yun? After all, Zhu Yun's words directly hit them. Coming from Wanjian Mountain. After Jinlun and the other two people looked at each other, he said, "What you said, fellow Taoist, is that we really have no grudges or enmities with fellow Taoist. How do you call us friends?" As he spoke, his tone softened. "My surname is Chen, and my last name is a Chinese character." Zhu Yun secretly laughed in his heart. In fact, when he was speaking, he had already used the Shattering Void spiritual eye technique. Although he couldn't see his fingers, he could still clearly see the expressions on the faces of the three people and knew that they had no murderous intention. Combined with their conversation just now, it seems that they are not completely sure about dealing with Wang Jianshan's three people. But, there is no need to deal with it now. Because there is no one in Wanjian Mountain anymore. He didn't mind, he lured these three people over and resisted the beast tied with him. It turns out to be fellow Daoist Chen. Jinlun bowed his hands politely and said, "Fellow Daoist Chen said he just came back from Wanjian Mountain. Can you tell me how things are going at Wanjian Mountain?" Jinlun knew that Zhu Yun had heard their conversation, and he did not shy away from it and directly inquired about the information from Zhu Yun. Zhu Yun grinned and said, "Wanjian Mountain, there is no one there anymore. So if you go, I'm afraid your trip will be in vain." No one. The three of them were stunned for a moment, doubting Zhu Yun's words. Another demon cultivator said, "Fellow Daoist Chen, can you tell me why there is no one? And, since there is no one, how come you are here?" Zhu Yun said calmly, "Because there was a monster attack in Chuzhu. Wang Jianshan was no match, so he ran away." Can the Chuzhu monster scare away three Danja stagers? I don't believe it. A third person wondered loudly. Zhu Yun didn't care whether they could see it or not, he directly stretched out two fingers and said, "There are 2 points. First, the beast tide coming from Chuzhu is boundless. Second, there are not 3 people in Wanjian Mountain, and the other 17 elders have also returned from Chuzhu." As soon as these words came out, the 3 of them became silent, as if they had completely disappeared into the darkness. Zhu Yun, on the other hand, continued, "Next, I am going to kill those monsters. I wonder what you 3 think. 20 people in the Danja stage of Wanjian Mountain have run away. Aren't you afraid that you will die if you go there alone? You know that there are tigers in the mountain, but you prefer to go to the Tiger Mountain." Jinlun couldn't help but said loudly, "If what Zhu Yun said is true, then he is a fool." "Really?" Zhu Yun revealed his contempt and said, "How can you dare to go to Hushan without San Sanzan?" After saying that, he stopped talking and walked towards the north with a relaxed pace. Because he knew that if he betrayed himself, he would definitely let these 3 people follow him. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzwan Xianxia. Chapter 388. Jinlun, what do you think? The cultivator on the right asked Elder Jinlun with a gloomy face. Master, we only need to know whether this kid is hostile to confirm the truth of his words. Jinlun found the key point and said without hesitation. The one who asked the question was the master of the Demon Will sect, Mo Tianlun. He hid himself very well, even Zuyun didn't find out. But for Zuyun, he didn't care what the identities of these three people were. I believe that as long as they meet the Beast Tide and the Lord of Naihuo City, no matter what their identities are, they need to be put aside. Sect Master, I also think what Jinlun said is right. That kid has no reason to lie to us. Unless he is hostile, then every word he says cannot be believed. So far, I have not found that he is lying to us. After analyzing Zuyun, Mo Tianlun pondered for a moment, then nodded, and said, in that case, let's go with him to Wanjian Mountain first. Although the boy has sword energy, it is not as sharp as the bitch in Wanjian Mountain. He is indeed a casual cultivator. Jinlun also said, Sect Master, what I can't understand is that if what this kid said is true, there is an extremely huge beast tide that can make more than 20 Jindan stage retreat, why would he go to die? Mo Tianlun said lightly, Jinlun, you don't see it deeply enough. Who would be willing to die if they cultivate to the Jindan stage? It doesn't matter, he is only one person, and we have three people. If there is really a beast tide like he said, we will still have time to leave. The two elders of Jinlun both nodded. Fortunately, they didn't know the horror of the beast tide, otherwise they would never dare to have such an idea. Zuyun was also deliberately mysterious, saying half of the words and leaving the other half, so that they could not suspect Zuyun at all. But they didn't know that Zuyun had them under control. Daiyu Chen, wait a moment. After the decision was made, it was still Jinlun who dealt with Zuyun, and he shouted. Zuyun understood in his heart, and immediately stopped, pretending to be relaxed. Do the three deists want to go with me to stop the beast tide? As soon as the voice fell, the three of them had already rushed to Zuyun. Jinlun laughed and said, we haven't seen the beast tide yet, so we dare not make any conclusions. But since fellow deist Chen dared to go there alone, we also want to join in the fun. Okay, just don't get scared to the point of peeing your pants when the time comes. Zuyun used a provocation method invisibly, and the three of them were immediately fooled. Jinlun said angrily, fellow deist Chen, who is in the early stage of Jindan, is not afraid. How can we, the three of us in the middle stage of Jindan, be afraid? Zuyun smiled slightly and stopped talking. Instead, he stretched out his hand and threw the flying boat out directly. It's still some distance to Wanjian Mountain, and he doesn't want to fly there with his body. If he encounters a beast tide, he won't have time to attack. On the flying boat, the strength of these three people can be gathered, so it's not so easy for them to run. However, the sudden appearance of the golden light made the faces of the three elders of Jinlun change drastically, and they all stepped back several steps. If they were not unsure of Zuyun's strength, these three people would definitely take action directly. Boy, are you from Wanjian Mountain? Jinlun shouted angrily. But Zuyun laughed and said, you are like a frightened bird. This is just the flying boat I took from Jianchaiwu of Wanjian Mountain. Look how scared you are. Do you want to get on? If not, I will leave. As he said that, he jumped up and pretended to control the flying boat. But in order to make the three people believe him, he deliberately turned his back to them. If they attack by surprise, this is the best time. And Zuyun was actually prepared. If they really attack, he can still escape with the thunder escape technique. And if they don't attack, then everything will be under his control. Don't do it for now, get on the boat first. Mo Tianlun sent a voice message to Jinlun. Jinlun retracted his action and shouted, fellow deist Chen, are you really not from Wanjian Mountain? You talk too much, love or not. Zuyun immediately turned his face and scolded. The purpose of this move was to create a sense of urgency. This unconventional method made the three people of Tianlun dumbfounded instantly. Listening to the tone, it seemed that Zuyun had already been dissatisfied. Jinlun had no choice but to look at Tianlun. After seeing him nod, the three people quickly flew towards the flying boat. After landing in the boat, Zuyun did not say anything nonsense, and immediately controlled the flying boat, soaring into the sky, and moving at full speed. Such a straightforward action made the three people unprepared and almost fell off the flying boat. But fortunately, Elder Jinlun and the other person were both in the middle stage of Jindan. Tianlun was in the middle stage of Jindan on the surface, but in fact, his strength had already reached the peak of the late stage of Jindan. It was just that he used a special secret method to conceal his strength, so that Zuyun could not see it. Seeing the reactions of the three people, Zuyun secretly laughed, and it was obvious that his plan had been successful for the most part. When they met the beast tide again, they would definitely not go west if he pointed east. Of course, the premise is that he can come up with a big move to shock them. Whether it is the Gathering Heavenly Thunder Talisman Array or the Fire Phoenix Talisman Array, it will be fine. The demon cultivators respect the principle of the supremacy of the strong even more. Meng Wei has already told him this. There was no conversation all night until dawn, when Zuyun had already taken the three of them to the Wanjian mountain. The three demon skywheels looked at the empty ground and were extremely shocked. Jinlun, tell me, are you dreaming? Why is Wanjian mountain gone? Really, it's true. Wanjian mountain is gone. Why is that so? Was it flattened by the beast tide? The three of them murmured, not even daring to blink. Although they desperately hope that a treacherous and domineering sect like Wanjian mountain will decline, they never imagined that even the Zhejian mountain where the sect is located will be gone. Zuyun pretended to be mysterious and said, when I come that day, this mountain will no longer be there. Tianlun asked anxiously, were they crushed by the beast tide? Zuyun shook his head, I don't know about that. It was impossible for him to say that the sword was refined by him, otherwise with the greed of these people, they would definitely take action against him immediately. Jinlun stared thoughtfully at the buildings below and said, when we formed an alliance with Wanjian mountain before, I seem to have heard that their forbidden area was there. Now that there is no one in Wanjian mountain, how about we wait? Take the opportunity to take a look at that forbidden place. Zuyun was dumbfounded. Others thought there were treasures in the forbidden area. But he knew that there was only one teleportation array in the forbidden area. However, if these people are not allowed to see clearly, it will definitely leave some obsession in their hearts. They simply said, it's so good. I've wanted to see the forbidden land of Wanjian mountain for a long time. Why don't we go there together? The tone seemed to be a request, and when Zuyun finished speaking, he had already made the flying boat fall downwards. There were some broken bones and blood stains on the ground. Even without complete flesh and blood, the three of them could tell that there had been a thrilling battle here. Look, these black feathers have a demonic aura. Suddenly, another monk jumped down from the flying boat and picked up a feather stuck in the crack of the roof. Motionlun and Jinlun looked at each other and said in unison, is there really a monster? Of course there are monsters. Zuyun was a little surprised, but it was to his advantage at this time, so he said seriously, the one rushing in front is a kind of bird monster, overwhelming the sky, but these bird monsters can only bully at best. Going down to the foundation building stage won't do much harm to us in the elixir forming stage. The three of them nodded when they heard this. Their strength is extraordinary. From the evil spirit remaining on the feathers, one can guess the approximate strength of the bird demons. But they couldn't imagine how many harpies there were. And what will really threaten them? After landing on the ground, Zuyun walked straight towards the forbidden area. This is just a teleportation array surrounded by an ordinary formation. There is nothing mysterious about it. but the formation outside stumped the three of them. Just when the demonic will was about to forcefully break the formation, Zuyun stopped them. "Fellow Daoist Chen, what do you mean?" Mo Tianlun narrowed his eyes and asked in confusion. Zuyun chuckled and said, "I don't know where those monsters are lurking. If I forcefully break the formation, I'm afraid there will be too much movement." Jinlun spoke up from the side, "Fellow Daoist Chen, how can we enter the forbidden area without breaking the formation?" "Why not?" Zuyun raised his eyebrows and put his hand on the formation wall. As the array patterns lit up, the expressions on the faces of the three people gradually became more exciting. They never imagined that Zuyun was actually an formation master. It is not uncommon to have an formation master in the Danja stage, but if you add the condition of being so young, there may not be such a figure in the entire Yezhu, right? In an instant, a strange look flashed across the eyes of the three of them, and their feelings towards Zuyun became even more mysterious. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 389. Zuyun didn't know what they were thinking. He only knew that breaking the formation would undoubtedly increase his own weight, making it easier to command them when facing the beast tide. Moreover, if you need to set up a self-destruction array, you can also ask them for some spiritual stones. After all, there are very few monks in the alchemy stage who are as poor as himself. Thinking of this, Zuyun couldn't help but sigh again. I always feel that spiritual stones are something external to me, and I just need them enough. However, the more spiritual stones he had, the less they felt like they were enough. This is also based on the fact that he does not use spiritual stones for practice. This protective formation is not too difficult, it is a very simple restraint. Zuyun's attainments in the formation are not weak, and with the help of the Breaking Void Spirit art, he has already completed this formation in just a cup of tea. The law is in your own hands. As he pinched a formation formula in his hand, the formation door opened wide in front of him. Really cracked? Jinlun exclaimed. He knows a little about formation, but only superficially. Including the demonic will and another Dan formation stage, they are also at about the same level. And this formation, after all, is where the forbidden area of Wanjian Mountain is located. It can't be too bad, right? However, Kenpeka was usually guarding the area, but now it was a leaderless formation. "Why, the array door is open and you still can't come in." At this time, Zuyun's voice sounded faintly, causing them to quickly come to their senses, only to see Zuyun take the lead in entering the formation gate. "Follow up." Mo Tianlun gave a low shout, and the three of them strode behind Zuyun. After this incident, they seemed to take a look at Zuyun Jiao, and their sense of mystery became even stronger. Normally, they wouldn't have any ideas. But before that, they knew very well what was going on in Yezhu. But now that even Wanjian Mountain is gone, they are inevitably a little panicked. I just don't know it yet. After entering the formation, Zuyun also looked around carefully. The formation was not big, and it was not in the space outside the body, so with just one glance, Zuyun set his sights on the teleportation formation. It's really a teleportation array. It's exactly the same as the one in Huangshi Mountain. I don't know if it has anything to do with Yayong. Zuyun secretly thought. The other three people also looked at the formation. They couldn't even understand the restrictions of this protective formation. Facing the more complicated teleportation formation, they were even less interested. I thought there was something good, but it turned out to be a formation breaking technique. Yin Chakra, if you don't understand, don't talk nonsense. Jinlun reminded him from the side. Even Mo Tianlun glared at him, indicating that what he said was inappropriate. Yin Chakra quickly shut up, secretly thinking that she was talking too much. This fellow Daoist Chen is so accomplished in the formation, and he is probably someone who loves the formation. If he slanders the formation and causes his dissatisfaction, that would be very bad. Fortunately, Zhu Yun's expression did not change, which could be regarded as letting Yin Chakra breathe a sigh of relief. Fellow Daoist Chen, can you tell what kind of formation this is? Mo Tianlun winked at Jin Lun, and Jin Lun quickly asked. I don't know, my formation knowledge is not high and I can't understand this formation. Zhu Yun shook his head and left here. When he entered it, in addition to showing off his level of formation, he also allowed the three of them to be at ease under his command. At this point it seems that it should be almost done. When the time comes, he will use the talisman again, and they will not dare to disobey his orders. After leaving the formation, Zhu Yun thought for a moment and said, when I came that day, the beast tide was here, and the people of Wanjian Mountain were fighting and retreating. Why don't we chase after them to see if we can capture those monster beasts? How about the way out? It all depends on fellow Daoist Chen. Jinlun said immediately. Everything is voluntary. If you don't want to go, Chen won't force it. No matter what, Chen will definitely go and have a look. This tide of beasts is causing harm to Yeazhu. If it is not stopped, they will kill them sooner or later. Zhuhao Mountains. Mo Tianlun shrank his pupils. The junior disciples of Mo Lun sect were all hiding in Zhuhao Mountain. If the huge beast tide really swept through, I am afraid they would not end well. The magic wheel sect was not destroyed in the hands of Wanjianshan, but was destroyed in the mouth of the monster. How should we explain it? Fellow Daoist Chen, it's okay, we can go together. Yes, I believe that fellow Daoist Chen will not lead us to death, right? Demonic Will and Yin Will said at the same time. I'm not a saint, Zhu Yun stepped onto the flying boat, without even looking at them, and said, if I can't be beaten, I will naturally run away. Is it possible that I will keep food for the monsters? Of course, if you go, you will definitely you have to obey my orders, otherwise it will cause trouble. Don't blame Chen for not taking you with him when he runs away. Definitely. The three of them said in unison. Zhu Yun was secretly amused, but he still ordered the flying boat to take off and sail towards the east. After touching a stick of incense, Zhu Yun frowned and said, three fellow Taoists, this flying boat spirit stone doesn't have much spiritual power, and Chen is also in a tight situation, so let's get off the boat and fly. With that said, Zhu Yun made a gesture to turn it out. Zhu Yun said so suddenly that the three of them were startled for a moment, and then they came to their senses. Mo Shenlun is very aware of the benefits of flying in a flying boat when facing a tide of beasts. Even if the four of them fly side by side, they can only fight independently when they encounter danger. If you were to communicate while escaping for your life, it would take a lot of energy, and it would be far less stable than staying on a flying boat. It is relatively safer to advance and retreat together. Facing the unknown beast tide, even Wanjianshan can force them to retreat, but they are not completely confident. Fellow Daoist Chen, spiritual stones are nothing. Mo Tianlun took out a bag of spiritual stones and placed it on the board in front of Zhu Yun. We are traveling together and riding on fellow Daoist Chen's flying boat. We should pay for these spiritual stones. This. Zhu Yun pretended to hesitate, but he was very happy in his heart. He didn't have the face to accept it directly, which seemed too fake. Who would have thought that Mo Tianlun thought Zhu Yun felt that the spiritual stones were not enough, and he quickly winked at Jinlun and Yinlun. The two of them also took out a storage bag one after another. Jinlun also said, fellow Daoist Chen, our Malun sect also has a spiritual stone mine in Zhuhao Mountain, so we are not short of spiritual stones. Yinlun also said, that's right, spiritual stones are nothing. Seeing this, Zhu Yun took advantage of the situation and put the three bags together. When he used his spiritual sense to detect that there were as many as 10,000 spiritual stones in the 3 bags, he was extremely excited. He had never seen so many spiritual stones in his life. 10,000 can set up 2,000 self-destruct arrays. I wonder if the golden dragon can bear it? Fellow deist Chen. Seeing Zuyun's rapid breathing, Mo Tianlun didn't know what he meant, so he said, fellow deist Chen, don't think it's too little. We were in a hurry to bring less this time. If those beasts dare to attack the Zhuhao Mountains, I guarantee that there will be endless spiritual stones. Zuyun's body stagnated. This is called being rich and powerful. But then again, Mo Tianlun's statement means that they have believed in themselves. He plans to use the Zhuhao Mountains as the last front line, so this time, let's take it as a test. Zuyun nodded to express his gratitude, and hung the bag of spiritual stones on his waist, and then said, the 3 of you have helped me with all your heart, Chen is very grateful. I don't have anything to show, so I will give each of you a few talismans for self-defense. Zuyun put 10 earth wall talismans on his body, that is, 2 per person. How could the 3 not recognize that this was a high-level talisman? Their faces all changed. Mo Tianlun said carefully, fellow deist Chen, did you buy these talismans from Zhaofu sect? He didn't believe that Zuyun could draw talismans. This was incredible. But Zuyun said lightly, such a simple talisman still needs to be bought. How troublesome, can't you just draw it yourself? The 3 choked. High-level talismans, you can draw them whenever you want? But the leader of Zhaofu sect, Fu Yazang, is not a good person. I wanted to buy some materials to draw talismans myself, but he forced me to buy and sell. I was so angry that I cut off one of his dog paws. It's not that Zuyun deliberately belittled Fu Yazang. In fact, Zhaofu sect is a vassal sect of Wanjian Mountain. I think the 3 people from Mo Lun sect don't like them. But Zuyun didn't expect that after hearing that Fu Yazang lost a hand, the 3 people were ecstatic after being stunned. Especially Mo Tianlun, he felt that he still underestimated Zuyun. Although Fu Yazang is only good at talismans, he is at least at the peak of the late Jindan stage. He was actually cut off by this little deist friend in the early Jindan stage. Daiyu Chen, you cut it off well. I don't know how many talismans Fu Yazang, that bastard, drew for the people of Wanjian Mountain. It made us suffer. Yes, when Wanjian Mountain attacked us, they used a lot of Fire Phoenix talismans. They came suddenly and we didn't react. Alas, if it weren't for the Fire Phoenix talisman, how could we have gone from more than 10 Jindan stages to only 3 of us now? Hearing the 3 people sighing with anger, Zuyun was also surprised. It seems that the help of Zhaofu sect to Wanjian Mountain is still quite large. But Zuyun stopped talking here and didn't say anything more. He let the 3 people sit on the flying boat and vent their anger. Until the sun set, Zuyun flew to the edge of Yeazhu and saw a shadow holding a black tower falling to the ground and stepping onto the Bingzhou map. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 390. Fellow deist Chen, what's wrong? The flying boat also stopped suddenly, and Mo Tianlun asked hurriedly. But before Zuyun could reply, he followed his gaze and looked at the ground in the distance. But no one was seen. The figure of the Lord of Naihuo City has already disappeared into the dense swamp forest of Bingzhou. Bingzhou has a lot of water, and the place connected to Yeazhu is a swamp. Only monks in the elixir formation stage dare to walk in it. Just like in the foundation building stage, he only dared to fly over the sky with his weapon. As for the qi refining period, it is absolutely impossible to reach Yeazhu through here. The Lord of Naihuo City also thought of this, so he decided to enter Bingzhou and release monster beasts to sweep away. He guessed that Zuyun would definitely stay in Yeazhu after escaping. But Yeazhu is so big that it might not be easy to find him. And even if it is found, Even if the golden dragon is released, it is possible for Zuyun to escape again. At that time, although he controlled the golden dragon, he did so with great reluctance, and he almost died in the hands of that kid. So he decided to enter Bingzhou, a place where no one had ever seen him, and let the monsters devour flesh, blood, and essence, thereby strengthening his control over the demon refining tower. When the time comes to return to Yezhu, he will die when he meets Zuyun. The Lord of Naihuo City has even decided to control the demon refining tower to such an extent that he can easily control 2 big demons. Otherwise it's all just talk. But he didn't expect that Zuyun and 3 Danja stagers had already chased behind him. I saw the person behind the tide of monsters. Zuyun pondered for a moment, then pointed at it. You mean, the beast tide was ordered by others? It's impossible, fellow Daoist Chen, according to your description, the beast tide is vast and boundless. Not to mention Chuzhu, even Yezhu probably has no one who can command so many beasts. A monster. Faced with doubts, Zuyun could not possibly say that the other party held the demon refining tower. It is one of the forbidden areas in Chuzhu, and the monks in Yezhu will naturally hear about it. Even the magic wheel sect in South Yezhu must have heard of it. Zuyun simply did not explain, but said, anyway, I want to go over and take a look. If you don't want to, just stay here. With that said, he put away the flying boat and hung it in the air. Then he took out the black sword and held it in his hand, and used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique again. Fellow Daoist Chen, do you want me to use my spiritual sense to investigate? Mo Tianlun hesitated and said. No, so as not to alert the enemy. Let's move faster. In the Bingzhou swamp, we can't move as fast. We might as well just fly over and hit him with your spells. Zuyun gave an order and rushed towards that direction without holding his breath. He believed the 3 would follow. Sure enough, the magic wheel led the 2 of them to accelerate immediately, flying to the level of Zuyun, and then said, fellow Daoist Chen, we didn't see that person, can you find out what the level of that person's strength is? At least it will reach its peak in the later stage of pill formation. Zuyun said something meaningful, but he didn't finish his words, even though he knew the true strength of Naihuo City Lord. Mo Tianlun frowned and said, fellow Daoist Chen, are you sure you can kill him? What do you think? Zuyun asked back, and Mo Tianlun suddenly realized that he had asked a stupid question. If he wasn't sure, how could he go up there and die? Mo Tianlun simply shut up and stopped talking, even though his original intention in asking was good. The original intention was that if Zuyun was not sure, he would expose his strength. He must be at the peak of his late stage. In this case, it may be better to keep one hand and use it as a surprise card. Zuyun did not see the realm of the magic wheel, but thought he was frightened, curled his lips and said nothing. Anyway, for him, if he really faced off against the Lord of Backfire City, the role of these 3 people would only be to help him attract attention. Just like the next plan. Soon, a group of 4 people finally flew over the swamp. Looking down from a high altitude, through the gaps between the canopy and the trees, a figure can be seen looming. The Lord of Backfire City is not very fast, and I don't know why he didn't release the monster. Zuyun secretly thought, since there are no monsters here, now is the best time for a sneak attack. His face hardened, he put his hands into his arms and said to the 3 of them, I have a killing move. You guys will hit that person with spells at the same time, and then I will make a sneak attack. When they heard the word killing move, the 3 of them were all frightened and nodded repeatedly. Zuyun put the black sword up, stretched out 3 fingers, and said, wait a minute, I will fly ahead, look at my gestures, remember to use them at the same time, do you hear me? I heard it. After the 3 of them spoke in unison, Zuyun quickly continued flying towards the east. After 1 mile, he waved. After the 3 people here waved in the same way, they glanced at the Naihuo city lord moving below, and then quickly looked towards Zhu Yun. At this time, Zhu Yun had already put away one finger. "Prepare!" Mo Tianlun shouted in a low voice, and Zhu Yun put away another finger. The three of them were all running their spiritual power crazily, condensing their own ultimate moves and getting ready to go. At this time, Zhu Yun finally clenched his fist and swung it down. The magic wheel shouted loudly, "Smash it!" Yanlun and Jinlun raised their hands upward, and a light wheel suddenly appeared. The golden wheel of light blooms like the scorching sun at noon. The yin wheel is the opposite, a dark gray magic wheel with gray light flowing in the middle, carrying an extremely weird aura. The two of them locked their spiritual consciousness on the Lord of Naihuo City at the same time, and then suddenly smashed it. The magic wheel, one gold and one gray, spun rapidly and flew towards the Lord of Naihuo City. As for the magic wheel, he was making the same gestures, but his magic wheel was different. I saw an extremely huge hollow magic wheel, dozens of times larger than an ordinary magic wheel, floating above the head of the magic wheel. Countless black thread pillars were connected to the edge, with magic power surging and black light flowing. Even Zhu Yun in the distance felt the huge magic power contained in it. This is definitely not a magic skill that can be used in the middle stage of pill formation. It seems that this magic wheel has something up its sleeve. The void-breaking spiritual Iju cannot tell the realm of the demonic heavenly wheel, but Zhu Yun can feel it when he makes a move. Then obviously, his identity is not an ordinary elder of the magic wheel section. Could it be that he is the leader of the magic wheel sect? While Zhu Yun was secretly guessing, the magic wheel also controlled the huge magic wheel and smashed it over. At this time, the Lord of Naihuo City had already noticed when Jinlun and Yinlun took action at the same time. They had already risen into the sky, and the demon refining tower had also grown a bit larger in his hands. However, the Lord of Backfire City did not summon monsters. In his opinion, summoning ordinary bird monsters in just 3 stages of pill formation would inevitably lead to large casualties. But if he summons the Golden Dragon Demon King, not to mention his own losses, what if the Golden Dragon turns to the guest? So the Lord of Naihuo City simply used the Demon Refining Tower as a stick and smashed it towards the 2 magic wheels. Poof! Poof! With 2 muffled sounds, the golden magic wheel was hit first. Under the control of the Lord of Naihuo City, the golden magic wheel and the grey magic wheel collided together, making a strange sound. The Lord of Naihuo City snorted coldly and kept drinking lowly. Long, long, long. Every time you recite a mantra, the demon refining tower will grow a little taller. When they were about to look at it, there was another big sound, and the demon refining tower seemed to have turned into a wooden stick that reached the sky. "Break it open for me." With a loud shout, the demon refining tower left his hand and slammed into the hollow magic wheel. The hollow of the magic wheel is where all the black light gathers. Even if Zhu Yun is a mile away, he can still see that this is the source of power of the hollow magic wheel. The demon refining tower is indeed an ancient treasure. Not only can it suppress monsters, the tower itself is indestructible. Boom! The huge hollow magic wheel was suddenly smashed open by the Lord of Naihuo City. Suddenly, magic power surged, and although the magic wheel did not disperse, it lost control and fell rapidly towards the swamp. Bang! Below, after a loud noise, countless trees fell, mud and water splashed everywhere, and a stench rose into the sky. "You guys retreat first, I'll meet him." Mo Tianlun's face condensed, and he was indeed at the peak of the late stage of pill formation. Seeing that Zhu Yun had not yet made a move, he decided to take the initiative to greet him. A look of determination flashed in the eyes of Jinlun and Yinlun, but they still retreated rationally. They know this level of duel, they can't join in. If you stay here, you will become a burden to the sect master demonic wheel. It is better to retreat and cast spells from time to harass. Who do I know? It turns out to be a bug from the magic wheel sect. The lord of Naihuo City showed disdain, stretched out his hand to summon the demon refining tower, and slammed it towards the demonic wheel. And at this time, suddenly there was a strange cry from behind, as if someone was beating gongs and drums. Clang clang clang. A sense of crisis arose from the bottom of his heart, and his spiritual consciousness subconsciously emerged. When he discovered that it was countless fire phoenixes, his expression suddenly changed. "Boy, it's you." Seeing the surging fire phoenix, he shouted in surprise and suddenly fell towards the swamp. Firstly, he needs to temporarily avoid the sharp edge, and secondly, there is water in the swamp. Water can overcome fire, which can somewhat reduce the threat of the fire phoenix to him. Want to run? It's too late. When the demonic wheel saw Zuyun making countless fire phoenix talismans, he was shocked and reacted very quickly. He made a prompt decision and continued to activate the magical wheel in his hand. A magic wheel larger than before was formed out of thin air, which took away almost 80% of his magic power. Die! With a roar, the hollow magic wheel crashed down.